Nice one, Azeb. Now we're going to turn to a country which is flanked by one of the world's busiest shipping lanes. Yep, we're talking about Malaysia. It's also one of the largest producers of palm oil and rubber, the nation's third economic pillar, actually. It's alluring foreign direct investment, which is the job of my next guest. He's Idris Jala. He's the Malaysian minister in charge of the Prime Minister's Economic Transformation Plan and luring local and foreign investment. Joins us from Singapore, where he's attending the Global Enterprise 2011 Summit. Well, foreign investment rebounding since 2009, and your boss, Najib Razak, became Prime Minister. Up 76%, I believe, FDI. Have you managed to attract that sort of cash, and can you keep on doing it?
Well, we put out the first, I would say the most comprehensive, out-of-the-box economic transformation program so far that the country had ever seen. We got thousands of people that joined in the laboratories, in our town hall sessions to produce this. Really very much getting the private sector to lead the way to cause this to happen. So two things we have decided to do was to identify clearly the areas of focus. We call them the 12 national key economic areas. So those are the areas we put a lot of emphasis on. And the other one was to create the conditions for competitiveness to flourish. We have 51 policy measures and reforms that we are putting there to cause this to exist. And I think if we get the first and the second, the focus and competitiveness to exist, then I think we will get a very robust economy that can transform.
Well, who have been your top investors overall, and which is the thing that they've been most interested in actually getting involved there in Malaysia?
Well, some of the biggest investors in the last couple of years is, of course, still continuing to be in oil and gas. And Exxon has committed to invest something like 10 billion ringgit, Malaysian ringgit, and this year alone, Shell is putting around 5 billion ringgit. And the biggest one is coming out from Petronas. They have announced that they will put a large petrochemical refinery project down somewhere in Johor, and that's costing about 60 billion ringgit. It's probably the largest private investment that the country has ever known.
Yeah, well, that's a good one of your foreign investors. It's Linus Corporation there of Australia. They want to get involved with rare earths, which are used in everything from mobile phones to cruise missiles. Now, there are a few concerns about, health concerns with rare earths and actually mining them. How's this going to play out, and what do you think the ultimate decision is going to be?
I think what we did here was to do a lot of public engagement. We have a lot of sessions with the public to explain to them that everything that is being done with rare earth, and they have to fulfill all the standards that set globally in terms of safety standards and environmental standards. So we have seen today that none of those projects will pass our scrutiny until and unless they fulfill those Malaysian and international standards. So to my mind, we are allaying all the concerns that exist amongst the communities, that all the things that we do here comply with best practices internationally.
Of course, you want to be part of the whole liberalisation, privatisation theme there as well in Malaysia, and one of the sides of that is, well, people who want to invest in, let's say, the financial services industry are limited here because, I think foreign ownership of banks limited at something like 20%. Is that going to change in the months ahead?
We have made a very clear policy direction that we will be creating the conditions for liberalization. We've identified, our Prime Minister has announced 17 sectors in the economy where we'll continue to push for liberalization. So as we do them gradually, the point that is clear is that you cannot get to a new beginning without managing the old. So the transition is required to cause this to happen. A big bang approach in making big changes is going to cause different kinds of economic dislocations. So what we're doing is that transitioning, making sure that we do this in a proper and a transition manner. And so I think if we do that, then I think we will succeed in what we're doing to transform the economy. Let me mention that the things that we're doing, everything that we do, it has to be catalytic to the growth and the transformation of the economy. And secondly, we need to create much greater gross national income. By the year 2020, we hope to reach a high income status. That means to triple our gross national income. And so the investment that's required is almost double. That said, it's not undoable because we are only thinking about a growth of about 6% per annum for our GDP. So to my mind, it's a realistic punch to go forward.
Idris, Jala, very quickly, I mean, you're going to have a tough time doing that, aren't you? I mean, look at the conditions that we have in the global economy. We've got a sovereign debt crisis. Europe's got no money. The US seems to be also teetering here with very slow economic growth. So, really, the dangers are that you're not going to be able to achieve those targets, surely.
Well, we feel confident that we could do it because, as I said, number one, we need focus. Pretending that we will be good in everything is a fallacy, and I think is the wrong path. And secondly, we need to create the conditions for companies operating in Malaysia to be competitive in a global world. So the 51 policy measures that we are creating will give us a confidence that that will happen. So for us, if I look at the initial progress so far in the implementation, the first one, the total investment that's required to push this program through, in just 9 months of implementation, we've achieved 11% of the 10-year program. For the gross national income, we've already achieved 13% rather, and the jobs required. So I think we have a really good start here, and we have the private sector really gung-ho in terms of trying to push the things forward. From a government perspective, if you notice, we are gradually and steadily reducing our deficit, and the government had made, through the Prime Minister, the recent announcement we will cut further next year our deficit. And at the same time, our monies that we borrow will be predominantly geared towards capital investment for growth rather than operating expenditure. And so when you look at the way we're heading it, we're pushing really hard in terms of growth. But more than 90% of the investment is private sector led rather than government. So that will help us with regards to reducing our own government debt.
Minister, thanks very much indeed for your time. Idris Jala there, the Malaysian Minister in the Prime Minister's office in charge of foreign direct investment.